Hello guys, it's Glurmit here, and today we're going to be going over different teams that may be useful in helping you win territory wars. Now, let me just start by saying this is aimed at people in the lower GP guilds, so lower than 200 million GP. If you're in a higher GP guild, the teams will change a little bit, but we'll get to that in another video. So, jumping straight into the video here, and the first team we have is Phasma Lead. Guys, Phasma Lead is amazing in Territory War, especially with the Omicron. Now, in terms of the team composition, I have chosen to show you guys Phasma, Executioner, Stormtrooper, First Order TIE Pilot, and First Order Special Forces TIE Pilot. Now, if you want to be really cool in your guild and you want to set the best team possible, then you're going to want to set something like this. However, you may be setting 50 teams a zone, and if you're in this sort of position, that would mean that you cannot afford to set crew with Phasma or Hux with Phasma. You have to be very careful about where you're setting teams, guys, because if you're not, all that's going to happen is you're going to run out of teams to place or run out of good teams to place. So whilst this is a very good lineup, it's a little bit difficult to do. Now, there is one character here who may have an argument for staying in a Phasma team regardless, and that is Hux. Now, why is Hux so good in a Phasma team, guys? It's because Hux is going to be preventing turn meter gain. What I mean by this is, say your opponent takes in Mara Jade Omicron against your Phasma team, they're not going to go first. Even with the Omicron, nothing happens because Hux prevents bonus turn meter gain. And guys, I've seen in my guild, in other guilds, I've seen so many people get stumped by this Hux in a Phasma team and go, why did Mara Jade not work? And I'm thinking, read kits, guys, please don't annoy Glurmit, read kits. So yes, Hux is fantastic in a Phasma team, and Phasma is a fantastic team to farm. Now, just so you guys know, there are some counters to Phasma. For example, Grievous, Dash can also counter them, for example. So there is ways to beat this team. But the big thing about Territory War is uniformity. Having, tens of the same team, because eventually you're going to run out of counters. We just said Grievous is a counter, but Grievous counters so many things in this game. So your opponents have to decide, do they counter this whole wall of Phasmas of Grievous, or do they save the Grievous for a potential Sith Eternal? Do they save the Grievous for a potential JML, for example? And that's the big thing for Territory War, and that is why teams like Phasma excel, because they're very powerful, but they're drawing out the good teams. If you put this on the front wall, you're guaranteed to take those good teams away from your opponent, so when they get to the back wall or the middle wall and there's like a surprise hanging around, which, guys, is hint, always change up your defenses and try and surprise your opponent. But when they get to that surprise, they can be like, oh, what have I just done? And that's what we're aiming for here, guys, and Phasma is a fantastic team for doing that. Next up, we have Padme, and just a little top tip from Glurmit, or secret intel, whatever you want to call it. I am BB-8 now. BB-8, yes, fantastic. I love it. In my guild, which is 214 million GP, Padmes currently have a 30% hold rate. Guys, a 30% hold rate. Padme is amazing. And do you know why? In Territory War they excel. One, because there's no Qui-Gon stealing Anakin from Padme. I mean, it's kind of disappointing. Anakin literally slayed the younglings to be a Padme, but Qui-Gon shows up and he's like, see you later, Padme, I don't care anymore. I'm all about the Qui-Gon now. So this team is really good. And why? One, it's good in other game modes. GOTB, it can work. It's not the most consistent, but it can work. And CPIT, it's a very good team. So there's a limited amount of teams. And okay, teams like Padme, teams like Phasma, they have a limited amount of counters. But in Grand Arena, it's okay. Because, you've only got one to go up against. But when you go up against 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or too many Padme teams in one zone, and someone starts dropping battles, which will happen because everyone drops battles eventually, all that's going to happen is you're going to run out of consistent counters. For example, we spoke about Grievous. Well, Grievous can also be Padme, or Traya, or all of these different characters, and the second you run out of counters, these will get so many holds. This is why it's important to work as a guild, as a team in Territory War, rather than try and go the solo route, or as we call it, the failmate route. Before we move on to the next team here, I just want to touch on characters you can sub in. You can choose to use Barriss or R2-D2 instead of C-3PO, although this is the best lineup here. The following: Padme, Kenobi, Anakin, Ahsoka, C-3PO. Although you can also use Commander Ahsoka as well. Moving on, we have Geos, guys, and Geos are a fantastic team. Some of you are maybe screaming at your computer or your phone or your tablet or whatever you might be watching in your watch for all I know. Technology these days, but you may be just screaming, going, Glurmit, what are you doing? Why are you recommending we farm Geos? What are you doing? And I'm just sitting here thinking, guys, just hold back a second. Listen to Glurmit. Geos are an extremely good Territory War defense, and why? Because they take good teams. Guys, there's so many zones in Territory War. It's 10 zones, 2 fleets, 8 characters. That means you're most likely going to be placing lower end teams and higher end teams. Now, the good thing about Geos, early game, 0 to, 150 million GP guilds. Seems crazy. Yeah, early game, those 150 million GP players, carrying the game one step at a time. You may be thinking Traya, Jedi Knight Revan, Jawas, which you may be using Jawas. If you are, then you are one of the best players in the game, and I love you. And then you may also be thinking, what about Vader? And I'm saying, guys, listen. Think back to what I said about Padme and Phasma. Why would you want to use Vaders against this when you can use Vaders against this with Commander Ahsoka, which is a much harder team to beat? That's why Geos excel, guys, because when you set a wall of Geos, 50 teams, or if you're lower GP and you've only got 20 teams as on, you set 2 Geo walls. Trust me, your opponents are going to start going, oh, I don't like bugs, and none of us like bugs unless you live in Australia and you live with them. Geos are very, very good, and they draw out these good teams, and that is what's important in Territory War, guys. Think of Territory War as a marathon, and think of GAC as a sprint. In GAC, you're going to go in, you're going to clear it, win. Oh, your Geos are trash, I got a Vader. Oh, your Mon Mothma's trash, I got Jawas. Jawas are so good. Anyways, back onto the point of Territory War, you can't do that. You can't have one person clear every zone, and it all comes down to so many factors. For example, we just established Vader counts as Geos. Well, what if people don't check mods because it's Territory War and that would be too much to ask? And then all of a sudden, people go, oh, my Vader got outsped with loss, and then they've just, preloaded it. Geos are amazing. Just listen to me, guys. Geos are fantastic. Okay, so in terms of why Nightsisters may be a good team to invest in, let's just go back over it for a second and think, what are teams that are hard to beat? Well, Nightsisters can fit that requirement. They're not the easiest team to beat, they aren't the hardest either. However, they are a team with limited counters. The most traditional counter that people will use is going to be either Geos or Imperial Troopers. And as we've established, Geos are good on defense, so you're unlikely to see them on offense, especially in the lower guilds. Maybe in the higher ones you'll definitely see them lower, maybe not. And then Imperial Troopers. Guys, you would be silly to use Imperial Troopers against the Nightsisters in Territory War, because you're probably going to be going up against a Darth Revan War at some point, so think strategically. Territory War is all about having cohesive defenses. Having a whole wall of one defense is better than having a random CLS and a random Padme and a random this and a random that and a random this and a random that, and that doesn't work. You want to have the same teams in the same zones. And Nightsister teams are easy to farm, guys. They're easy to gear. So there's no reason why you can't have a whole wall of Nightsisters. So if you're a Territory War planner, I just made your life easy. Farm some Nightsisters. In terms of lineups, you don't really want to change it. You want to keep it. This lineup is the best. Maybe you go as Sarge lead if you don't have Talzin Zeta, but Talzin's the better lead here. Next up, we have Crew. Now, again, if you've been farming SLKR, you already have this team. And again, like we said earlier, Territory Wars take a lot of teams. You're setting 250, 300 teams, 400 teams, 500 teams. It's crazy. So, you may have to be strategic with your resources here. So like we said, you can do a Phasma team, but why not also do a crew team? Trust me guys, crew is a hard team to beat when there's loads of them, because they take good counters. In early game guilds, like we're talking sub 100 million GP, so very early on, crew is one of the best defenses in the game. This team is very hard to beat, and you underestimate it a lot. Now, you can swap arcs out, but then the team's going to lose a lot of value, because he prevents bonus timing to gain, like we established. CLS, and let me scroll up so you can see CLS's beautiful face. This team is amazing. This team is amazing. There's only 3 or 4 counters to CLS in the game that are consistent, and once you run out of them, you're screwed, guys, because Han's going to go first no matter what, and then if they're modded well, they're going to take loads of turns, and you're going to have a bad day. What a team. And honestly, I would recommend you guys farm this. Even taking CLS to like gear 12, it doesn't matter. And now in terms of teams you can use to beat this, I mean, you're going to be using like Treya, but Treya can work, but if Treya dies too early on, you're screwed. You can also use Iden, but then Iden loses a little bit of the viability outside of GAC. You can also use teams like Grievous, but again, why do you want to use Grievous here when you could use Grievous against this, or you could use Grievous against something else, or Sith Eternal, or JML? This is what I'm trying to say, guys, and this is why these teams are all so good and will help your guilds win territory wars. Because, and hear me out guys, territory wars are a guild event. They're not a solo thing. You need to plan as a guild, you need to attack as a guild, and you lose as a guild, and you win as a guild. And what I'm trying to say here is, if you farm up these teams and you help your guild leaders out, they will love you, because having a structured defense is how you win territory wars. Because it seems really weird. You might be thinking, oh, but if you mix things up, maybe you'll win. That's why you have Geos and maybe some odd teams. But for the most part, the guilds that have certain teams in certain zones win. Think of it this way. If you went into a territory war and you look to the first zone and you see a zone of Geos, right? All gear 12, all bot ready, some relic. And then you look to the other zone and there's like one Darth Revan, one Jedi Knight Revan, one Padme, one Nightsister, one whatever. You would probably go for that zone instead, because they don't all have limited counters. Like we said, guys, you might be off-put by Geos, because the second you run out of counters, Geos are going to ruin your life. And that is what we're trying to say here, guys. I hope you've all enjoyed the video. If you have, please like and subscribe. My name is Glurmit, and I hope you'll have a glurming day.